Kevin Stefanski is no stranger to criticism, but this time, the heat is coming from the fans, triggered not by his play calling, but by Emmanuel Acho's defense of him. Acho's claim that Stefanski has been fair and strategic toward Shedeur Sanders struck a nerve with a fan base already exhausted by missed opportunities and lack of direction. To many, Stefanski's tenure has been marked by flashes of promise, followed by steep decline, and the idea that he's still being defended, despite mounting evidence of mismanagement. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Feels like a slap in the face to those watching the same story unfold year after year, because at some point, narratives have to match reality. Stefanski has cycled through quarterbacks and lost the benefit of the doubt. The team isn't developing, it's treading water. And with Sanders now stuck in that same system, fans don't want to hear strategic justifications. They want to see results. If leadership can't deliver that, and media voices continue to cover for it, then nothing changes. And for Browns fans, that's the real problem. Not just losing, but losing the same way every time. Emmanuel Acho probably thought he was dropping a hot take when he came to the defense of Kevin Stefanski this week. What he actually dropped was a grenade, one that blew up in his face almost instantly. His insistence that Stefanski has been fair and strategic in his handling of rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders has set NFL fans ablaze with frustration. But it wasn't just a take. It was the way he completely dismissed a mounting pile of coaching errors happening in Cleveland like they were background noise. The backlash came fast. Fans accused him of shielding Stefanski from the kind of accountability that any other coach in a spiral would be forced to face. Social media lit up with receipts, game footage, broken offensive drives, and a glaring lack of development that's becoming harder to defend with each passing week. To many, Acho's words weren't just off the mark. They were insulting to a fan base that spent season after season watching potential get wasted. Kevin Stefanski, meanwhile, hasn't exactly made it easy for his defenders. He's stayed relatively neutral in press appearances, continuing to say the right things about progress and long-term vision. But fans aren't buying anymore. They've heard all the polished coach speak before. What they're seeing now is a team stuck in neutral while the rest of the league evolves. And here's the irony. While Acho claims Stefanski is making the best of the bad situation, fans are pointing to clear signs that the bad situation is largely Stefanski's own making. Mismanaged play calls, rotating quarterbacks like it's musical chairs, and an offense with no clear identity. There's no offensive rhythm, no long-term build-up, just patchwork fixes and awkward sideline body language. Then there's Shedeur Sanders. The rookie quarterback has been thrown into a system that, from the outside, looks more like a maze than a developmental program. In recent games, especially the matchup against the Bears, his body language said everything. Confusion, frustration, and moments of hesitation that weren't there in his college days. It's not that Shedeur is the problem. It's that he's playing inside one. He's getting rushed without protection, tasked with executing a game plan that seemed to change week to week, and taking us behind a line that can't hold. The Browns aren't setting him up to succeed. They're letting him survive. And for a rookie with talent and poise, survival mode is a developmental. Fans know the cycle too well. They've seen it with Baker, Mayfield. They've seen it with every Browns quarterback who's come through the door since the new era began. A couple of decent moments, followed by blame shifts, QB changes, and endless press conferences promising improvement. And all of it ends the same way, with a disappointing season and another round of finger-pointing. It's not that the Browns can't win games. It's that they can't build a system where winning becomes sustainable. Everything is reactive, from the coaching decisions to the roster tweaks. Fans don't want another reboot. They want consistency. They want a coach who doesn't just weather storms. He prevents them. That's where Stefanski is falling short. And that's why Acho defending him hit such a nerve. At his most recent press conference, Shedeur didn't throw anyone under the bus. He answered the questions with composure, even when the subtext screamed dysfunction. When asked about the lack of offensive cohesion, he said the team was working through things. When asked about coaching decisions, he deferred. But his pauses? They said more than his words ever could. It's hard to blame him for staying diplomatic. He's a rookie. He doesn't get to speak freely, not yet, but fans heard what he didn't say, and it confirmed what they already knew. This isn't a quarterback problem. It's a system problem. And continuing to protect the system, instead of rethinking it, is hurting more than just stats. It's hurting careers. In contrast, Stefanski's post-game interviews are starting to sound like reruns. We need to execute better. There were some things we liked. We'll look at the tape. These aren't answers. They're stall tactics. Fans don't want poetic ambiguity. They want direct accountability. They want someone to say, that wasn't good enough and it's on me. But instead, they get coaches hiding behind analytics and platitudes. And analysts like Acho enabling it. This is where the criticism deepens. When insiders defend the institution more than the individuals inside it, they lose the audience. Especially when the institution is clearly. Even more damning are the visuals of Shedeur on the sidelines, head down, visibly frustrated, talking to no one. It's not just about wins and losses anymore. It's about what kind of environment this coaching staff is creating for their players. And it doesn't look like one built on growth or support. It looks like damage control. Every time Sanders gets sacked or misses a read, the fan reaction isn't, he's blowing it. It's, why is he still being put in this situation? The patience is gone. Fans aren't interested in waiting another year to figure it out, not when the same patterns keep repeating. On the field, Stefanski doesn't look like a man adapting. He looks like a man surviving. Watching him on the sidelines, arms crossed, scanning the field like a defeated chess player, doesn't inspire confidence. Leadership, in moments like these, isn't about body language alone, but the optics matter. And right now, the optics are loud. Fans aren't stupid. They know what a disconnected sideline looks like. They see players jogging off the field with blank stares. They see miscommunication after every failed third down. They see coaches clapping to no one. It's not a team. It's a group of people trying to finish a shift. And when an analyst like Acho glosses over that with a word like strategic, fans hear the gaslighting loud and clear. To his credit, Shedeur is still showing up, still answering questions, still trying to do the job the right way. But development isn't just about talent. It's about context. And the context in Cleveland is failing him. It's not enough to have a rocket arm and cool composure if the system around you is a revolving door of instability. He deserves better. And fans know it. That's why this debate isn't really about Acho. It's about what his defense of Stefanski represents. A refusal to confront reality, a loyalty to the brand of process over the proof of progress. And the more that narrative gets pushed, the more detached the commentary feels from the product on the field. What this all boils down to is trust. Fans no longer trust the system, and they certainly don't trust anyone defending it without critique. Emmanuel Acho could have acknowledged the complexity of the situation. Instead, he picked a side. And in doing so, he revealed a divide that's been simmering beneath the surface. Analyst versus audience, strategy versus accountability, loyalty versus truth. This isn't about piling on a coach for a bad season. It's about calling out a broken cycle before it consumes another promising player. Fans are done waiting. They've seen enough. And unless someone inside the building finally says what everyone outside of it already knows, this team isn't going anywhere. If you're tired of analysts defending the indefensible, hit that like button. If you think accountability should start at the top, drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're ready for honest conversations about this game we all love, subscribe, because we're not sugarcoating anything. It wasn't just the Browns fans who took issue with Emmanuel Acho's defense of Stefanski. Neutral NFL viewers, analysts, even former players were jumping in to point out the clear contradictions in his stance. One minute he's saying Stefanski is doing the best he can with what he's got. The next he's acknowledging the lack of results. That's not nuance, it's tap dancing. And everyone can see it. People don't want another media personality acting like a team psychologist. They want straight talk. If a coach isn't producing results, say it. If a quarterback's struggling, call it out. But don't pretend the system isn't broken when the record shows otherwise. That's what drove this story past a single clip. It became symbolic of the wider issue in NFL coverage. Too much spin, not enough truth. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is doing everything right. He's showing up at practice, going through drills, keeping a professional tone in media sessions. But none of that changes the fact that he's being shaped by a system that doesn't know what to do with him. People talk about growth, but growth only happens with structure. And structure is exactly what's missing in Cleveland right now. Practice reps only go so far. When the game plan crumbles every Sunday, you can drill footwork and timing all week, but if the plays fall apart before the snap, none of it matters. And for Shedeur, that disconnect is becoming too obvious to ignore. There's talent here. Everyone sees it. But without real support, talent starts to erode. Not because of effort, but because of confusion. Stefanski's game management against teams like the Dolphins has become another sore point. The questionable decision-making, the lifeless offensive drives, the lack of halftime adjustments. It's not just fans noticing anymore. Other teams are watching the tape and figuring out the Browns before the game even starts. There's no unpredictability, no edge, just repetition and regression. What's even worse is how Stefanski sticks to the script when it's clearly not working. There's a level of stubbornness that's beginning to look less like commitment and more like denial. And when that mindset spills over into player development, it becomes damaging. The Dolphins didn't just beat the Browns. They expose them. And that exposure shines directly on the head. In the matchup against the Vikings, the same problem surfaced. Sanders was flushed out of the pocket constantly. The offensive line looked like it hadn't prepped at all, and the game plan gave him zero rhythm. There were no easy throws to build confidence, no creative calls to open the field. It was just Shedeur, alone, try and make something happen in chaos. At this point, fans aren't just mad, they're tired. Tired of seeing a gifted quarterback scrambling for answers on every down. Tired of hearing excuses about rookie mistakes, when the real rookie mistake was putting a new player in a dysfunctional scheme and pretending it was a fair test. Shedeur is not the one failing. He's being failed. And then comes the pattern. Loss after loss, replayed with the same exact talking points. We had some good moments. It's about execution. We're still learning. That tape has worn thin. Fans don't want recycled sound bites. They want change. Real change. Not just cosmetic substitutions or mild coordinator shakeups. They want someone to take the wheel and steer with intention. The Browns have become the embodiment of the phrase, all potential, no payoff. They have names, they have flashes, they even have games that give hope, but they never string it together. And that's what defines culture, consistency. Right now, the culture is fractured, and defending it, like Acho is doing, just adds insult to injury. If you line up Sanders' performances across his NFL starts, there's a painful consistency, not in his play, but in what he's being asked to survive. Same broken protection, same lack of creativity, same desperate scrambles. Each game feels like a different version of the same problem. That's not on him. That's on the people calling the shots. And yes, fans are tracking it. Every game, every snap, every unnecessary hit he takes. Because it all adds up. Development doesn't die in one big moment. It dies slowly through neglect, through missed opportunities and poor planning, through coaches saying he's learning, when what he really needs is a fighting chance to compete on equal terms. When the Browns faced the Ravens, the gap between good coaching and bad was on full display. The Ravens made adjustments. The Browns made excuses. Stefanski once again defaulted to the same tired script, refusing to adapt when the pressure mounted. Meanwhile, Sanders was left to improvise on the fly, with no lifeline from the sidelines. Games like this are where coaches earn their credibility, and Stefanski's track record is starting to say more than his words ever could. The wins are rare, the development is stalled, and the product on the field is becoming harder to defend. Fans aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for progress, and that progress is missing. In interviews, Shedeur remains composed, but the cracks are starting to show. He talks about staying focused, controlling what he can, working harder, but you can hear the weariness behind professionalism. There's only so many times you can repeat "we're close" before it starts sounding like a lie, and fans can tell when the message doesn't match the reality. That's what makes this whole Emmanuel Acho situation sting more. It's not just that he defended Stefanski. It's that he did so while ignoring what Shedeur's been walking through every week. Fans saw it as dismissive, like Sanders is a footnote in a story about a coach trying to figure out. But he's not a footnote. He's the centerpiece. And if the system can't protect him, then what exactly are we doing? Acho's response to the backlash? Not much. A few clarifications, some vague references to nuance in coaching evaluations, but nothing close to acknowledging the core issue fans are shouting about. That Stefanski isn't just making mistakes. He's stuck in a pattern of failure. And worse, he's being insulated by media voices who are too deep in the industry to call it what it is. That's the credibility gap. When a coach keeps losing and still gets defended by analysts on national platforms, fans start to wonder who's actually watching the games. It feels disconnected, performative, and that's the kind of disconnect that kills trust in coverage. Because at the end of the day, people don't want spin. They want truth. And this season, the truth is ugly. There's still time to course correct, but it won't happen until someone in that building and in that analyst chair admits that what's happening isn't working. Defending mediocrity doesn't make you loyal. It makes you complicit. The Browns need a new plan, a real one that prioritizes development, not damage control. Clarity, not cliches. And if analysts like Acho want to be part of the conversation, they need to stop defending the past and start demanding better, because the fans already are. Loudly. Kevin Stefanski is still standing in front of the cameras, answering questions the same way he has for months. We trust the process. We're staying the course. There's no panic in this building. But to everyone watching, it's not calm, it's complacency. The responses sound automated, like someone hitting replay on last week's press conference. At some point, leadership means saying the hard thing, acknowledging that what's happening on the field isn't good enough. The longer Stefanski dodges that moment, the more fans check out. Not because they don't care, but because they've heard it all before. And what's worse than failure? Repeating it with a smile and a shrug. Back on the sidelines, Shedeur Sanders continues to sit with that same expression, a mix of frustration, restraint, and pure exhaustion. He's watching games unfold with no control, no clear answers, and no consistent support. The cameras keep finding him, helmet off, eyes scanning the field, jaw clenched. That image is starting to define this Brown season. When a rookie quarterback starts spending more time watching than leading, it's not just a personnel decision. It's an indictment of the system. Sanders wasn't brought in to ride the bench or take blame for busted plays. He was brought in to lead the next phase of this franchise. But instead of being handed the keys, he's being shown the escape routes. And it's not just one game. This season has been a carousel of underachievement, losses that look the same, drives that stall in the exact same way. It's like watching a team that refuses to evolve, running in place while the rest of the league speeds by. Every Sunday is a copy of the last one, and that repetition is killing any sense of momentum. Fans can accept rebuilding. They can accept growing pains. What they can't accept is staleness. What they're watching right now is a team in limbo, not rebuilding, not competing, just existing. And when an analyst like Emmanuel Acho stands up and says this is strategy, it feels like a slap in the face to every person who bought into something better. Acho's takes didn't just strike a nerve. They expose a growing rift in the way media covers the league. There's this tension between people who want to maintain access and relationships and those who want to speak honestly about what's failing. Acho picked a side, intentionally or not, and it wasn't the fans. The backlash wasn't because he supported Stefanski. It was because he did it without acknowledging the cost, without naming the damage being done to a promising rookie quarterback, without calling out the lack of accountability. Fans want coverage that reflects what they see, not coverage that sounds like it was co-written by a PR team. After yet another loss, Stefanski's post-game media session hit every familiar beat. There's no finger-pointing. We'll clean it up. We've got to be better. But none of it lands anymore. There's no sense of urgency, no evidence of learning, no signal that anything will be different next week. It's damage control dressed as leadership. And when Sanders' name comes up, it's always vague. He's working hard. He's developing. He's learning. The subtext, he's not ready, so don't blame us. But that doesn't track. Because if he's not ready, why throw him in? And if he is ready, why not support him properly? The logic is full of holes, and fans are done pretending not to remain composed in front of the media. But there's only so many ways you can say, we've got to get better before it becomes hollow. He's being diplomatic, careful not to make waves, but the subtext is loud. He's tired of this. Tired of the mistakes, the confusion, the lack of a plan. He's a professional, and he's doing everything asked of him. But it's clear that the questions are starting to feel repetitive, just like the games. How do you fix this? What's not working? He knows the answers, but he's not the one calling the shots. That tension is hanging in every soundbite, and fans are starting to hear it more clearly each week. In the matchup against the Bengals, all of the Browns' issues were on full display. Slow starts, poor clock management, misassignments, and a complete lack of identity. Stefanski looked out of ideas, out of sync, and out of excuses, and yet, somehow, still firmly in charge. The Bengals didn't just beat the Browns on the scoreboard. They outclassed them in every category that counts. Coaching, preparation, execution. The gap wasn't talent. It was structure. And as fans watched Sanders try to salvage something behind a collapsing line, the message became painfully clear. This isn't working. Against the Titans, it was deja vu all over again. Sanders showing flashes of brilliance, smart reads, elusive footwork, crisp throws, but everything crumbled around him. The receivers weren't on the same page. The protection broke down. The game plan felt like it was made with someone else in mind. And that's the heartbreak. He's not playing badly. He's being set up to look that way. Every mistake is magnified because the system provides no cushion, no room to grow, no grace period. Just pressure, just judgment, just isolation. And when that happens to a rookie, it's not long before confidence becomes collateral damage. Despite everything, Shedeur continues to show poise. His interviews are still calm. His social media presence remains positive, but that doesn't mean he's unaffected. No competitor wants to feel like a passenger in their own career, and no fan wants to see a young star dim before he even has a chance to shine. He has the talent. That's not in question. What is in question is whether the Browns have the infrastructure to unlock it. And right now, the answer is looking more and more like a no. The longer this continues, the louder the calls for a reset will become. Not at quarterback, but at the top. The truth is, people aren't mad at Shedeur. They're mad for him. Mad that another young quarterback is being tossed into a broken machine and expected to fix it from the inside. Mad that the narrative always protects the coach and critiques the rookie. Mad that every season feels like a rerun of the last. And if nothing changes, it won't just be Sanders they lose. It'll be the trust of the fans. The belief that things can ever be different. Because hope doesn't die all at once. It dies in moments like these, when excuses become standard, when mediocrity becomes acceptable, when silence becomes complicity. If you're still with us and you've had enough of this endless cycle, hit that like button. If you think it's time for honest accountability and a system that actually works, drop your take in the comments. And if you want more real talk and less PR spin, subscribe. We're just getting started.